Welcome to Artflakes on CBA TV. This is Mutiu Olawuyi, your regular host of this wonderful show. The only show that takes you beyond the border. The shows that explore every part of the globe. Today, we are moving to the United States. And this time around, we will go deeper into the hub of the publishers and writers there. But I will tell you something very unique about our new guest today. But I won't tell you here. Meet me on the other side of the studio and we'll talk about this. See you there. Welcome back to the other part of the studio. Here we are today. We're going to be discussing about the literary world of the New World. The New World, we get to understand historiographically or historically that the New World is the United States. And how did they come about this? In 1620, we had the nonconformists moving from England to the New World, searching for a place where they could worship their Lord without being influenced by any human, as a result of the fact that their home was healthy for them in England. And they came to the New World called the United States today in 1620. So for those who know history, they will talk to you about this. Anyway, today we'll be dealing with the literary world of this New World, the United States, with Dustin Pickering. Before we go deeply into the program in detail, I want us to look at the background of this wonderful writer. Who is Dustin Pickering? Dustin Pickering was a founder of the literary and art journal called Harbinger Asylum in 2010. He established this very important literary and art journal. Within 3 years of the establishment or the creation of this wonderful journal, the journal was nominated for Best Poetry Magazine by the National Poetry Awards. In 2013, he began publishing full-length poetry collection, which have been archived at the University of Texas, as well as Marquette University. He has authored several poetry books or collections with Buddha Press, Chitrangi Publisher, Hawakal Publisher. All these I feel they're in India. He also published a short treatise called A Matter of Degrees, which we'll be discussing in detail in the show today. And some of his works have been translated to Spanish, Portuguese, Albania, Macedonia, etc. In his spare time, he also preparing what we call the visual arts and music. He hosts events in Austin combining poetry and live music from time to time. Welcome again to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So what do you have to tell us about the literary world of the New World? I mean the literary world of the United States.
Well, it's very complicated. As I've been discussing with the critic Nish Shivlani, how writers are ultimately solitary people, and that's where we get our energies from. And but we have more availability of technology to publish books than ever before. You have the platforms like Kindle Direct that do very cheap and easy, great looking books, and really you just put the work in, you can put your book together and get it on these platforms with no cost whatsoever to you except to buy the books. But at the same time, most of population's not really that interested in the majority of creative writing out there. I've known people who graduated from Rice University whose books did not sell at all. I was very fortunate for my book Salt and Sorrow to sell about 60 copies in India and internationally when it was published in India. And but I do feel like we're vital. We're a vital energy to the culture. And I think, I think poetry especially, even though it's a pretty overlooked art, is a very, very important artistically speaking, because something about it just speaks to you, especially when times of crisis or trouble. I mean, how many people at their weddings or their funerals read poetry, and then during times where there's so much confusion, maybe even nationally, I've heard that people are reading poetry now under now that Trump's president. There's so much confusion, we don't know what's going on a lot of times, and people are reading more poetry now than ever.
I learned that from your biography. It shows that you've been involved in short story writing, not only poetry. How is life of creative writer, particularly short story or fictional writers in the United States? Is this something that people appreciate or not? What is the view or condition of novelists and short story writers in the States?
Well, I honestly don't know. I do know there's a lot of debate over fiction. Recently, there was a book put out called American Dirt, and that's been very controversial because it's basically a woman who identifies as white, and she wrote about the migrant experience. She went to the border and she did some research of her own, and a lot of people in the Hispanic community feel kind of slighted that she's able to sell this book, and it was with Oprah's book club, and so there a lot of debate about this. But the good news is we're developing a conversation over these issues that are going on in the world today, which is what literature should do. And whether this is ethical or not for her to sort of take on a character that of a ethnicity she doesn't belong to is really, to me, kind of a fruitless question. But I do feel like at least we've got a discussion going about what's important to a lot of people and trying to understand the situation at hand concerning migrants coming up from the south. And we're discussing this in more detail, and hopefully we can get some kind of perception going on and some ideas generated from the discussion about, what is bothering everybody right now. There's a lot of confusion, like I said before. But I do know that, fiction can be vital. There are, especially fiction writers left, of course, are going to read fiction. But I think it seems like most people in general are not too terribly interested in literature in general right now. I don't know if that's extremely true of just the United States or everywhere else. But I know that I don't know of anybody that really reads a lot of literature other than people that I know that also write it. But I mean, there are people that appreciate it and can respect it, but they don't necessarily read it fervently as, say, a person who writes fiction.
So what about drama? What's the condition of playwrights in the United States? How do people view them, or are they still appreciated as it used to be in the past?
I know that they can be pretty powerful too sometimes. I know that for instance, the production Hamilton was pretty popular, and these are other ways of getting people to talk about the politics going around, the ideas. I mean, they said that one of the cast of Hamilton had spoke to Mike Pence directly from the stage. I thought that was kind of interesting. And you have some controversies over especially the politics. I recently read about a playwright who said he left the harebrained liberal side or something to that effect, and it stirred a lot of conversations about the political divisions going on in the country. And I don't know if I think most of the common person is really not too terribly interested in literature specifically, but there are a lot of intelligent, thoughtful people reading and thinking on these issues, and in general, like, big issues too, other than the politics. We've got cosmology, and is religion still important today? We have these kind of questions that are being confronted.
Some people believe that most filmmakers will prefer to transform fictional writing to a movie, particularly movie makers. They will prefer to have the fictional work translated to or transformed to a movie, rather than considering a play or a drama text to a movie. Is this really true? Are the Nollywoods and other filmmakers in the United States getting involved in this?
You know, I don't know. I think I had just an interesting discussion with a friend of mine last night about film and how it combines visual, audio, and it creates a mood. And I think it is very powerful in that capacity. I personally don't watch a lot of films. I don't, pay attention to television too much, but I think something about the medium is more all-encompassing, visually more. It's more stimulating to people. They can sit and watch it, and it's also not something that taxes your energies too much. You can just sit, put some popcorn, and sit there and watch, and you don't have to really get too terribly involved and focused on it. You can even let your mind kind of relax here and there, and I think that's the powers of concentration going against humanity there. But I do think that it's somehow more stimulating and easy stimulation for people, and most people just I know in this country at least work to death, constantly, having to spend all their energy on just taking care of their families and keeping things in order, and that's not going to give you much time to want to sit down and read, the Bronte sisters or something. It's not, conducive to that.
As a publisher with over a decade of experience in publishing market or publishing business in the United States, what are some of the common challenges faced by publishers in the United States?
One of my things, I mean, it's difficult to decide what to publish. I mean, I've had people that have sent me some fantastic work. I just don't have, I only have so much resources and myself, energy and time to put into it. So you have to decide what's important to you as a publisher to publish and get out there. And then, of course, you have to sell the book to keep, your company flowing, and you want people to read it. And there's always this feeling of the market not doing its job or something, where you feel like, you sell maybe 5 or 10 books and it's just kind of like, you have the challenge of feeling relevant, even though you're doing something relevant. The world's not paying much attention, and for some reason it does pay attention to some things, like the Instagram poets and people like that seem to do really well market wise, and people like publishing some very deep, interesting, thoughtful stuff is not as popular. So there's just the feeling of being relevant, knowing what you want to publish.
All right. Thank you so much. I feel we've been able to have a thorough exploration of the world of literature or the literary world of the United States. We need to go for a break. When we come back from the break, we'll be talking about the world of the writer himself. See you there.
Welcome to QETC Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
I am Ahmed Mohamed Ahmed. I am a student of Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
Qalam Educational and Technical Center is a place that you can improve your English language.
I came with zero English. Now I'm better.
Come to Qalam Educational and Technical Center. This will help you to improve your English, your listening, your speaking, your writing and reading.
If you want to speak confidently without fearing, come and join Qalam and learn how to speak in front of thousands people without fear.
All right, welcome back to the second part of the show. The show where we have been exploring every nook and cranny of the literary world, which we see from those lenses to discuss about what is happening to people in different parts of the globe. So today, again, we are with Dustin Pickering from the United States. Pickering has explored the literary world of the United States. Let's go into some of this work. How far has it gone? So, Pickering, can you please tell us what, as an experienced writer and publisher, you've got a lot of work that you have published. What pushed you to write Salt and Sorrow? Why do you name this Salt and Sorrow? Is something hooky and catchy? What is it about?
Now that's an interesting question. It started with the publisher actually approached me and said he was founding a separate publishing house from the one he was working with, and they were going to work together. That's Chitrangi. And Kirti Sengupta there, he came to me personally and said, I'd like to publish a book by you. And I said, well, give me some parameters. What do you want me to do? And I'll see what I can come up with. And he said, well, I want you to bring the God of the Bible into the world. I was like, that's a pretty interesting perspective and way of approaching literature. And I really had been thinking on a lot about the way biblical text can be very human, and we're presented with the churches, and the church authorities often present a sort of weird, take on biblical literature, and I found like there were certain things in it that were very human that anybody could relate to, and I tried to make those into these little poems. And for instance, I took the early story of Joseph and his brothers throwing him into the well because they felt like he had some sort of charisma or something to him, and they were jealous of him. And I talked about sibling rivalry and how that was something that was still going on during that period. So it was kind of like the book itself was an affirmation of human nature, and the way the Bible can actually help you come to terms with certain things that have been going on with humanity for so long. And of course, a lot of that's myth and constructions, but it's powerful stories, I think. And I felt like trying to present the possibility that maybe there is some sort of divine spark to everybody. I mean, I was an atheist for many years. I don't think I switched over until about 33, 34 years old, and I think it did wonders for me. I think I was denying a strong part of myself by being atheistic, and not that I think that any atheists are wrong or bad or anything. I just think that I feel like I have a part of me that's a very deep spiritual side that I was denying for a long time, and I thought to come to terms with it, I confronted it head on, which was a very fun and enjoyable experience. And I think the poetry that came from that was wonderful. I think it was beautiful, and a lot of people liked it. So I think it was a successful book.
You just mentioned something about Joseph in the Bible. This struck me. It's also very related to a story in the Quran about Yusuf and his brothers. Have you for once tried to explore some other texts, other spiritual texts like the Quran, to see how you can be able to go deeper into the literary hub with this spirituality that you've decided to go into?
I have read a little bit of the Quran, but not enough to be familiar to have any real opinions on it or any thoughts on it. I do have a very beautiful edition, leather-bound edition of the Quran in my books, and I've read maybe a good third of it, maybe, which I feel like I should be reading the rest of it too. I've read a good deal of the Bible too, but I guess I'm culturally more acquainted with the Bible than I am with the other holy texts. So I was more focused on that when I was writing the Salt and Sorrow.
It is interesting to hear that you moved from being an atheist to a spiritualist, somebody who believes in God. And for one to be able to experience peace, actually, your spirituality is an important element, not religiosity anyway. That's my personal opinion. Let's go to the second part of your work. There's one work, a literary work you wrote titled The Madman and the Fool. What is this about?
Really bizarre, sort of almost bordering on science fiction stories I did. One of them is about his cat. His cat passed away, and he just really loves this cat. And I wrote a story to kind of comfort him. He presented this idea of what kind of literature his cat would like or be interested in, and I really thought about it, and I thought I'm gonna write a story that kind of fits that those themes. And the other one was a separate story about which the whole lesson of it was we should be content with who we are and accept who we are. And I presented it as a very strange story where a guy makes a deal with death to marry this. He's in high school and he wants to marry this extremely gorgeous cheerleader, and he makes a deal with death, and he screws the whole deal up, and he ends up getting turned into this ugly fish, and she disappears, and it's funny. But the whole lesson is you're supposed to or you should be willing to be content with who you are, take your stand and being sort of be the person you're meant to be. And I feel like struggling with trying to define myself kind of give me a little bit of collateral on that. So and that story of the food story is really kind of charming. I don't want to talk too much about that one. But that one is a very interesting. I haven't ever tried anything like that, but it was sort of science fiction-y with a little bit of metaphysical speculation thrown in. They're both short stories.
Okay, how about be not afraid of what you may find. So what is the work all about?
That was we had the situation in the literary community with this guy who was writing some pretty offensive stuff about particular people. I don't want to give anybody's name out, obviously, but some particular people in the literary community, and he got called out for it. And one of them made a joke about, can someone write a story where the this poet or this person kills his wife and no one knows, but we suspect it from looking at her Facebook. And I was like, I think I'll try that. And it took me 2 weeks. I wrote the novella in 2 weeks, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it. I threw in some of the Catholic symbolism, and it's basically a story of 3 women who find out that they unearth the conspiracy by these nuclear waste companies and the local government, and how they're kind of in together trying to prevent the city from knowing what they're doing, and it develops into sort of a supernatural horror mystery. It was a lot of fun to write. I really enjoyed that one. I don't know. I would like to write something else like that sometime, but I don't have any ideas on it yet. So.
Okay, before we go to the end of this show, I want us to have a little bit exploration of specifically one of your literary work. Can you give us a literary work of art that can be explored together with our viewers at home, that will give us a little bit about the power of words that you convey in some of your literary works?
This one's kind of, I like to, incorporate philosophy and especially, human emotions in some of these things. And these don't have titles, but they're all part of the narrative. And this is Knows No End. It's published by Hawakal in India. And this one just starts off with, am I falling in love? Is love some sort of knowledge that only the lonely seek? What am I in my hiddenness? Is there a fearful darkness in the surrounding skies? Even if I see the bright lure of life's blessedness, do I know it is real? How do I know the reality if I do not know the ideal splendor? If transcendence is external to this, do I declare my eyes open? Do I reach higher? The mystery deepens in my solitude. The flower will not share its secret. How did these things grow, wither, die, return? If I become what I admire, will I know it fully? Is beauty something that inhabits, or is it a quality of touch, a sensation of immortality? Why lust when the truth speaks? I don't understand. I cannot see. Something is growing cold beside me while I reflect on the spring. I awake to white crystals flaking on the ground. And that's from my book, Knows No End. It's a story of a painter who walks into a meadow and she sees a hyacinth flower and she starts to paint it and she kind of falls in love with it. And it's really about aesthetics, about, what is art, and I go into questions about what is truth, and, sort of explore some of that with that book. So that was a really enjoyable experience as well.
Wonderful. I actually enjoyed the poem, but something struck me as you were presenting the poem. I noticed you used more of rhetorical question. What could have led to that? Why do you decide to use rhetorical question more in the poem?
Well, I'd like to suggest a truth rather than actually directly state it, because that kind of feels to me authoritarian, or like I'm preaching at you, telling you what to think. And really what I want you to do is join the conversation in the book as it's going on. I'm asking questions, and she's inquiring. The painter is inquiring in her own mind, and as she's inquiring, you're hearing her inquiry. It's sort of like you want to join in, you want to say, well, what about this or what about that? And so it leaves some open ends for the reader to, to think on things. And I feel like that's more of a subtle approach than trying to just, strictly state what is going on or what's being thought. And I think, it's much looser, and it gives the reader more freedom to think as well.
As a writer and publisher, what are you doing to encourage younger ones to get involved in the literary work of art? As you said earlier, it's dying day by day. People are no longer interested in reading some literary work like drama, poetry, etc. like that, though they are relevant, particularly poetry. What are you doing as a writer and publisher to encourage young ones to go into this?
I like to. We didn't have little poetry readings out here, and we might have 5 or 7 people show up, and we love the young people. We love when they come in and sit with us and listen, and students and all kinds of people. We try to invite as many people as we can. And I sometimes give out my books at my reading. When I have a reading and I'm, happen to be there, somebody may say something interesting to me, and I think, let's encourage this person to think a little bit, and I'll give them one of my books, and especially like we had a young lesbian couple that used to come in and talk and do their readings, and they were a really smart couple of girls, young women, and we enjoyed having them around. And so I like to kind of nurture people with literature. I just bombard people with books. I suggest people to read stuff, and when I find someone who I connect with who loves literature, that's one of the greatest things, and I love to send them books in the mail and talk to them and sort of be a friend as well. And I've met a lot of fantastic people through that, through publishing. There's so many friends I've made that that I would not be doing anything else if I had a choice. I think that the people I've come in contact with are just wonderful, and I try to bring in the underdog too. Is if someone wants to put their foot in and get involved in the arts community and is maybe a little shy about it, when I do an event, I may ask that person specifically to come and read for us, and that gets them kicked off, and they learn it's not really as scary as it looks to be on a stage, especially for maybe 20 people or something. And we do these events, and I just push out there, and I talk about literature like 24/7, all the time, just and I give people books. And when I meet somebody, sometimes I just give them a book. It's just the only way I can think of to get people to read is to give them books. So that's what I like to do.
You've also mentioned importance of modern technology in the literary world of art, or in publication of literary work in the United States specifically. So how have you been able to use this to collaborate with other authors around the globe to boost the image of writers and also encourage people to appreciate the work of creative writers, not only in your domain in the United States, but beyond the border?
Well, one thing we did is we've done some anthologies which had general submission. Anybody could submit, and we like to do topics and that make you think. Again, that's my thing. And we did a love anthology, What is the Nature of Love? And it was called Epiphanies and our Sudden Realizations of Love, Late Realizations of Love. And as far as using the technology itself, I mean, I always love to tell people if they're writing, you can get a book out with no trouble at all. And I kind of explain the process and how easy it is, and I even offer maybe to put the book together for them if they want me to do that, or at least show them how to do it, or give them some kind of guidance into how to get a book published. And I especially love doing books that get a lot of different kinds of people, of different age groups, different persuasions, economic backgrounds, and get them to submit things, and go out. We pass out flyers, and we do all kinds of things like try to get some of these younger people to be interested in what we're doing. And I have several subscribers that are to Art My Journal that are pretty young, and we love to just bring people in, just rein people into the to our stuff, what we're doing, and get them interested in, especially coming up and reading at some of our open mics and stuff. That's a very good thing, and encouraging them and kind of joking with them and getting them loosed up to where they can get up on stage and present themselves. And we've met a lot of really good people who've had a lot of good literature on them that they're going to hopefully write a book someday and go forward with that. So we've gone to some of the colleges too and did open mics there, and just in general. And always tell people, like for instance, my editor, one of our assistant editors is 18 and she just started college. And I've told her, myself, that it seems like the more your heart is wanting to just wrench out of your chest, the more your writing is going to have power. And so in those moments, when somebody opens up to me and says something's going on in their life and they're writers, I say, well, one thing you want to do is read and write while this is going on. It'll kind of assuage your pain, and it'll help you to deal with what's going on. And then when it's all done and said, when you're moving forward in life and you look at what you produced from that, it's a good sign of hope. And, it tells you that, where your mind was in that period. And, and it also helps develop the talent itself, of writing, and it makes it your companion, So I like to encourage people who feel like they're wanting to be serious, they keep them writing, Sometimes you just want to quit. There's no point, right? I mean, no one's reading. It hurts sometimes, but you got to say what you got to say, what's in your heart, what's coming out, something wants to be born.
Thank you so much for this exploration. I love your response. Actually, what would be your final message for our viewers at home with regards to this literary work of art?
Well, even if you're not a writer, get involved in the arts. Think about what kind of what kind of subjects do you like. It may be cooking, it may be bike riding, whatever. There are books out there on absolutely anything you can put your name to, and so just find some books, read it. And even if you're already know what you're reading about, it helps. It does help your communication abilities. It helps your mind stay and focus, and it's like a meditation. And so reading is very powerful, not just to learn and acquire knowledge, but also to develop skill sets that are without a doubt some of the most powerful skill sets we can have in life. Ability to communicate more fluidly and to relate to people that you may not have an idea of who they are as a person, other than you maybe read some of their cultural literature, or something of their whatever they're interested in, and you can have a conversation with people, and it just really broadens you in general. So I would say, even if you don't really like reading, it still can improve a lot drastically in terms of you'll fall in love with it if you give it time. It's a lot of effort, and it's very good effort. It's very well the time you put into it is definitely worth it, I would say.
Thank you so much, Pickering. I think we got to go. We have to round up now. I really appreciate your contribution so far with this wonderful show with us. In Artflakes. I hope next time we will have a more engaging literary discussion. Thank you for joining us. All right, dear viewers, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this very important creative show on CBA TV. And I can assure you that we will keep moving and touring every part of the globe. This time around, we have explored, not holistically anyway, the world of the United States. The next time we meet, we'll go to another part of the globe. See you then. This is CBA.